This gathering actually is an emergency meeting in response to some of the issues that have arisen in the last few weeks, especially emanating from the National Assembly. You will recall that 1 week or so ago, the second reading for the establishment of the Vigilante whatever of Nigeria was passed, and it's only awaiting signature now by the President Commander-in-Chief. And for us as members of the licensed private security practitioners of Nigeria, we express great concern. In the first place, we are highly disappointed by what you call proliferation of security agencies, both government and what you call quasi state-run security agencies in the country. There's a complete and total disregard for a very good security architecture that a country like Nigeria should have. Before the Vigilante thing, we heard about Peace Corp. There was no proper coordination. It went through some readings, and later the fallout was that the head of Peace Corp was picked up and that he had already started carrying out trainings, recruitments, without any formal authorization from government. This is an insult on the state. And for us, as responsible citizens of the private security sector, we believe that government should have recourse to professionals in the field in order to bring about a crafting of a security architecture that is befitting of our nation, both in terms of its composition, size, and experience. So we are called this meeting today in order to look at the issues at stake. The Vigilante bill that has just been passed now, there are so many questions that arise from it. In the first place, are they state-funded? Are they going to be state-funded? Or are they going to be commercial entities? Before now, we know that some vigilante that we see in different parts of the country bear certain forms of firearms without any form of denouncements or arrests by the police authorities, and it is assumed that they have the right to bear firearms. Meanwhile, the private guard sector that is regulated by an agency of government and established by an act of government is not allowed to bear firearms, despite the enormity of the job and services that it provides in the area of securing lives, property of citizens of this country. Another concern that we have is what agency of government will begin to regulate this vigilante group that they want to pass into law. What agency of government? Are they going to be extra regulatory? That is to say, hanging and standing on their own? In which case, it will portend serious danger to the Nigerian people. So what we're here for is to put heads together and advise government to revisit its stand on the issue of the proliferation of security agencies in this country. There are so many security agencies. There's a cross-functioning or duplicity of functions. One agency, you cannot properly define its role. Another agency is coming up, you cannot define its role. The roles crisscross. And it's a heavy burden on the national budget. So I think it's important that government at all levels begin to take a relook or revisit this issue of establishment of one agency, security agency or the other, in order not to bring about confusion in the system. As it were, there's already a very high level of, competition, so to speak. Government cannot possibly employ everybody. It's not the responsibility of government to employ. It's the responsibility of government to create an enabling environment for the private sector to employ the employable Nigerians. Government cannot possibly employ everybody. And when we begin to look at employment from the point of view of government alone taking on all unemployed persons, then we are missing the mark. Let government look at private sector. Anywhere in the world, it's the private sector that drives the economy. So let government look at all the enabling factors that will make the private sector to move. And the private sector we employ. So tomorrow now, you start another security agency because you want to create employment for persons from your local government. You pass the bill, then you have a proliferation of security agencies just because you want to create employment. In the end, after 2 years, federal government budget will not be able to pay the people any longer, and then you have a time bomb on your hands. I think policies should be well thought out, considering all variables.
Has their own criminal elements that live in society. That is why, as my president just spoke, that it is our responsibility as the government, as the private sector, business people, to create an enabling environment where businesses can thrive. When people are gainfully employed, we see that the crime rate in the society will reduce. When the government have structures in place that cater for its citizens, crime rates will reduce. Again, we know that government security agencies alone cannot provide the security of a nation. That is why the private sector is a critical arm that the government should always come to for support, for partnership, so that we can cover that gap that is left that the government agencies cannot cover. Private security industries in Nigeria that are licensed by government, that is our regulators now, the NSCDC, are over 1,000 in the country. These are companies that have been vetted and underwent due process. We are able to provide the required services in the security sector by synergizing with key government security agencies to ensure that the security situation in the country right now is greatly improved.
Now, you see, I am worried. Like, the point is that I'm also worried not only about Peace Corp, I'm also worried the present bill that the government second reading in the House of Rep to establish the National Vigilante Group. You see, the government is unconsciously creating insecurity. Because when you proliferate security agencies, what, there's going to be rivalry, And again, like my president did ask earlier, this security, for instance, like Peace Corp, the Vigilante group, who is going to fund them? Who are they going to be regulated? Are they going to be the federal government agency, or are they going to come under the private guards umbrella where they be regulated by civil defense? If they now come under a different law, it means it's a different arm entirely. You see, security, if they use the umbrella of employment. If you want to employ youth, the police is understaffed. The immigration is understaffed. Civil defense is understaffed. Even the military is understaffed. Why don't you now boost the strength of all those agencies and then give them the required training? But when you bring all this through the back door, get all this like a civil, the Peace Corp, Vigilante group, they don't even have the capacity. They're not well trained. Now, where will civil defense be trained? Who's going to fund them? Where are they going to? Where will be? What is going to be their mandate? These are all things that will create conflict, and it creates already. There's already a rivalry between the security agencies, even though it's not. But they say it doesn't. It's there. But with understanding, with maturity, I think they're going to. Then with this provision, this creation of these new agencies, Peace Corp, the Vigilante group, is not healthy for our security architecture. One, they are not trained. Two, are they going to be state actors? They have not defined their mandate. Are they going to be a federal government agency? If the federal government are they going to have to compete? Are they going to carry out the function of the police and the civil defense? What will be going to be their role? All of this will create conflict. So I know sometimes most of these things are done by politicians. They want to score a point. National security, the national security is key and central, more important than anything else. So our politicians should not politicize our security or play about security needs. The government should be focused. I want to advise the government that it is not healthy for security of this country to proliferate these agencies that don't have a base, don't have the capacity. My president asked, who will regulate them? And the licensed private practitioners are being regulated by civil defense. The police is there. Even Section 214 provides that there shall be no other police force. And these are coming through the back door to create agencies that roles conflict with the police and other security agencies. And it's not too healthy for our security. I think the government should look, if the issue of concern about employment, to boost employment, the police is understaffed, the police should boost up the percent of the police. The civil defense is there, immigration is there, customs is there. These are all having they can boost up the strength, and that will reduce unemployment and create jobs and create revenue and create their wealth. So I think our priority should be actually adequately identified, and then make sure that we don't do anything that will become exacerbate insecurity, become a threat to our national internal security.
Sir, is there any link between this organization?
The advice is this: we have different units of security outfits, from the traditional one, that is the police, army, navy, and the air force. And we have our own, which is ALPSPN, which is quasi commercial. What everybody wants is, how do we synergize? So they advise that every unit that has been created should work in harmony and in synergy. Because when you're looking at crime, criminals look for the loopholes in any organization, on any unit that pass through. So once they are harmonized and come together, the rivalry within agency, whether the traditional one or the quasi one, will not be there. So we discovered that we have a direct way of regulating. And what the company have said is that we provide intelligence. And it suits you to know that we have over arrest, we don't have the power of prosecution, and we don't have the power to carry arms. What is very vital is the information. And when you have information, you have every other thing. The police or the traditional need the traditional security, they need information. They are not magicians. And what did they rely on? You hear they start asking your police, your friend, give us information. We have the architecture, we have the spread to provide this. So that is the area we need to harmonize to make sure that the nation is better secured.
See the board of trustees. First, you know that organization is well structured. We are to advise and give guideline to the management exco, and we do that by holding meetings periodically and by relating with them and knowing what the problems are. And if we have other observations, we do contact them and tell them what they are supposed to do. So our role is guidance to the organization.
Thanks, sir.